A major shift that just hit the American media. And most people didn't even realize how big this is. After 50 years of operations, the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, also known as CPB, and the backbone of funding for shows like Sesame Street, PBS NewsHour, Arthur, Between the Lions, Frontline, it's getting shut down. Why? Well, that's because of the Trump administration's new GOP bill. The big, beautiful bill. So they're at it again. I am not a news prospect, guys, but let's go ahead and take a look and see what the heck is going on. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Big Blue, and this is a channel where we find understanding, seek the truth, and be the light. All right, so here's the situation. As of August 1st, it looks like CPB will actually be shutting down. They are a three-letter organization that provided government funding for stations like NPR and PBS. If you guys don't know PBS, maybe if you were my age and grew up in the early 90s and early 2000s, then you watch PBS because we didn't have phones and technology to keep us entertained. And that was the educational stuff that we were able to watch. So the whole idea behind it is this was the educational channel. So this came after the Republican-led House passed the rescission bill. This is essentially taking away the fundings for $1.1 billion that's supposed to be going to the CPB. They're just taking that away. Now, as a result, CPB can no longer provide assistance, government fundings for NPR, for PBS. And these were their stations, like I mentioned, that had all these shows that we learned from growing up. But interesting enough, Bill Nye the Science Guy has his 2 cents on the whole situation. Let's check it out.
Can you just talk a little bit about what the corporation meant for the work that you did and for the kids that you served?
Well, it's why the show became so popular. So for you broadcast historians, the Science Guy show started out in syndication at 22 minutes, 30 seconds, and then it ended up on public broadcasting with an extra 5 minutes of programming every day. So if you have a copy of those old shows, hang on to them. But with that in mind, that's where the Science Guy show, became very, very popular. And the show has served to educate people in elementary science for decades, and I'm honored, and it's wonderful. It's great. But part of the reason it was so successful is we had very compelling research that 10 years old was as old as you could be to get the so-called lifelong passion for science, and it's probably as old as you can be to get a lifelong passion for anything. And I mention it because it was based on research. It was based on science. It was based on provable facts. And that's what shaped the Science Guy show and made it so successful. The same is true of Sesame Street, and the same is true of Mr. Rogers and other shows. So what's going on, everybody, is a little bit in the weeds. The administration is trying to use these rules or laws, which were clearly, in my opinion, never intended to be used this way, to derail the will of Congress. And so they're using they're planning to use this business of impoundment of funds and this extraordinary new legal theory, pocket rescission. And there's no such thing, they're making it up. And the irony is that the communities that are going to be most affected by curtailing public broadcasting are the rural communities that voted for this administration. And as one example, I have met countless people, that is to say more people than I can count, who came to this country from other parts of the world and tell me that they learned to speak English by watching public broadcasting, by watching my show, by watching Sesame Street. And one of the ideas of this administration, which is nominally quite reasonable, is to make English the official language. Well, if you want people to learn English, you want to have public broadcasting. This is just an ironic mess up on their part. The plan right now is to cut it $1.1 billion through this new legal theory that I'm sure, I am not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure it will be shown to be illegal, what they're trying to do. But this all takes time. Takes time and time and time. And when you break stuff It's much harder to put it back together.
So the thing is, the CBP, of course, this was something. This is an agency, or this is a corporation that was approved by both Democrats and Republicans, which is one thing that I think a lot of people got to consider. And one can say that this decision was supposedly severely on just Trump and his administration. And I can see how that can be a point. It was approved by Republicans. It was approved by liberals after all this time. There's just so much change that's been happening that I can sense is the issue here in regards to the progressivism. This level of progressive is intense over the past couple of years since COVID. It's been intense. And that's something that the previous Republican administrations didn't have to deal with. So this was okay. Like I said, back in the day, everything was just education as far as like providing the facts. And the interesting thing that I noticed Bill Nye mentioned was that his show, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, provided facts. He didn't mention, now it could be that he doesn't know any other shows that's out right now, but notice how he didn't mention any shows that are out right now because of the progressivism, which could be a thought, which could be a theory as to why he didn't say that. And also how he secondly mentions about back in his show time frame, not recent, back then. So I low-key feel like he has an understanding of what's going on, but I don't know. Now, the idea is that this is affecting a lot of rural areas. Apparently, PBS is still big in a lot of rural areas where they're watching these shows. This is like secondary education. And honestly, I'm gonna be real. When I was growing up, this was that education that I was getting at home. The Bill Nye the Science Guys, the Arthur, learning about dealing with people and dealing with emotions, because there was a lot of emotions going in Arthur. Sesame Street, let's see, Zoom, like the sciences and learning about just it's like that second bit of class, except it's being broadcast on TV. Oh, even Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's from like way back in the day. Y'all young people don't know what that is. But if you're older than 30, you know about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood because Mr. Rogers was the homie. So again, these are the people that are being affected. Well, I say that, but these are the shows that was out when I was younger. Now, I don't know exactly what the heck they're still playing nowadays. I still feel like Arthur is still ongoing, or it may have ended, but Sesame Street is definitely still going. But as far as the other shows, I know a lot of them have stopped. Now, a lot of these shows, a lot of these stations still exist, but it's gonna be a huge amount that's gonna be taken from them. From my understanding, is like a lot of these stations, they're gonna be losing at least probably somewhere up to 25% of their budget that was coming from CBP, and it's just going to be gone. So that's going to cause a lot of cuts, just like with everywhere. It's going to cause a lot of cuts, a lot of jobs being lost, and if they're no longer to support, these type of networks, especially on the local level, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Is on the local level. This is a macro decision that was made, but is going to affect a lot of people on the local level. And I don't know if the Trump administration really. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can't say that they don't know, but the way that they're acting in this matter is as if they don't know, or they don't care. But that's for the heavy Republicans, the heavy MAGA people to go ahead and comment and let me know. Like now. Now, apparently, I've been doing a little bit of research on this whole situation because now, again, like I said, I grew up watching PBS Kids. I grew up watching the shows. A lot of the shows I like. Today, gems. Between the Lions, gem. Bill Nye the Science Guy, Zoom, gem. It's kind of hard to locate these type of shows, but these are the shows that provide that secondary education. If your kid didn't get it at school for whatever reason, they got it there. There's a lot of shows that help teaches about everyday life, teaches about morale, teaches about living in society. Like I mentioned, Arthur deals with a lot of Arthur is a very interesting situation, especially in the direction that it took. But regardless, these were the shows that I grew up with. These are shows that even now, if you guys actually seen my video not too long ago, it was about my time being a foster parent. Now, when I had the foster child that was in the house, one of his favorite shows that I put him on was Zaboomafoo, which was on PBS. And he loved I guess, the spinoff, which is kind of cartoony version, which is the Wildcrats. And he loves that show because it taught about animals. There's so much information that I just knew about animals that a lot of people didn't know. Now, isn't a matter of like something that's going to be a life and death situation. I mean, they didn't tell me what to do when I'm coming across a bear or a mountain lion, but understanding the life of other animals and how they act in their natural habitat, and just minor tidbit information. It's good to know. It's good to have a better understanding that there's more than just our life. There's things that's out here that we're set to kind of maintain. Is that our biggest purpose? No, not necessarily, but it's here. So why not learn about it? And then does help spark wanting to learn more, wanting to understand more things that are out. So apparently, with this funding being taken away, that's going to affect a lot of the educational content that, and the big thing that the left is upset about is that this is information, this is educational resources that's going to be taken from those in the rural areas. Now, I don't know how much people are still watching PBS or NPR. I thought NPR was no longer a thing. And PBS, I know, is still out there, but some of the stuff I saw was a little concerning for my household, at least. But other people may say different. But at the end of the day, apparently there's still about 58% of the U.S. households that still watch PBS, which is honestly interesting because I don't see people watching TV anymore. I don't see kids watching TV as opposed to, if anything, I do my due diligence in making sure that my daughter's phone time is very limited. And now that she's getting old enough, we're giving her these educational games for her to do on the phone. But even then, when she's watching TV shows, they have to be educational, helping her learn. It's not just like stuff where she could just be dumbfounded. But at the same time, she's watching shows like Backyardigans that talk about dancing and using your imagination and singing. And then especially Blue's Clues. She likes Blue's Clues, the original Blue's Clues with Steve. Again, not to get into that, but this is all educational stuff for the kids, and this is the stuff that I grew up with and that helped me learn about certain things. Now, granted, is Blue's Clues a little much for a 2-year-old? Yeah, probably, because I was a 2-year-old when I was a 2 when I was watching Blue's Clues. But it's like those minor things that she can begin to pick up on. Those are very important. And I can see how this is going to be detrimental to a lot of families that don't have the best, school systems or be able to have access to these higher education stuff where they can be taught. So this was something that allows for their kid to learn things. So I understand that aspect of it. I definitely do. Now, most of the funding, they're not going to flashy stuff. They're not going to anything crazy, but they're meant to keep, signals running, the broadcasting, the shows, paying small stations. They're helping to pay their employees. Again, hence, with my other video, because of the big, beautiful bill, my wife's job was heavily, severely affected. So they had to cut a lot of people. Same way with this. And not only that, this funding was supposed to help provide access to programs like the Reading Rainbow. I don't know, but the weird thing is I don't see shows like Reading Rainbow anymore. I don't know. I just don't know what they have out there. But what I've been hearing has been interesting, and the few times that I did see it, interesting as well. So what are the liberals saying? I mean, as I mentioned before, like, they see this as definitely an outrage. This is outrageous to them. It disproportionately hurts the rural communities. Like I said, the communities. I mean, not that I was in like a poor community or impoverished community or anything like that, but it was just a matter of when there were summertime, when I had summer and I wasn't in school, I was watching PBS because I had literally nothing else. But I could definitely see how this is going to affect a lot of households, because this, again, part of second education. So you take that part, which is weird because the Republicans was mentioned. Well, so the big thing about the Republicans, and especially them cutting the education, especially like when it comes to schools and the Board of Education and them trying to remove that, I can see how this could kind of seem contradictory because this is not part of the schools. But the thing is, especially with what I'm seeing, is government funded, and it's from what I'm seeing is moving in a direction that's very progressive, and Republicans don't like that. It's very progressive. They're using specific, but and because of the progressivism that we being seeing, that I've been seeing in some of these shows, it's like it's a continuation of some of the stuff that the school system is allowing to happen. So it's like when we're talking about education as a whole, removing the Department of Education and trying to re-siphon that money and allow teachers to real or it's everything is being moved in a market space, in a market mindset. So it's like there was no worry of what we were doing. So we just did whatever we wanted. We did whatever was coming up and whatever was, I guess the new trend. This whole progressive mindset of inclusion, the whole LGBTQ thing, and understanding different cultures, and what do we call that? Critical race theory that I saw in Arthur. Honestly, all those in Arthur. This is not, and this is my perspective. This is not what somebody may be calling me old school, but I guess that's the whole point of progressive. We're progressing and I'm remaining where I am. Well, if where I was worked, why would I change it? Now there's a lot that goes into that, but we don't have time for all that. From what I'm seeing, it doesn't take too much. It seems like the Republican Party are taking the mindset of all we need is just a little bit that we don't like, even though there's a lot more to the whole thing, but we just need that little bit and we're going to deem it as enough to remove it. Now, we say that it's a little bit, and a lot of people are going to say it's just a little bit. But for certain people, especially somebody like me and the ways that I want to raise my kids, that little bit has a heavy impact. It's literally like a little Jenga piece, but that little Jenga piece can literally cause the whole tower to fall. But the same is in reverse. So what are the Republicans saying? The Republicans are saying that this they favor a lot of democratic ideas, climate change, again, immigration, critical race theory, all that stuff. There doesn't seem to be really much represented on ideas from the right perspective, where it's like we're trying to. And it seems so backwards. It seems so backwards. Just the definition of progressive. I feel like ultimately, to me and my understanding, the right is more so, or the conservative mindset is more so progressive because they're trying to progress in their current situation, economics. I guess in an economic financial situation, be able to progress to do more, progress in the situation that they're in, progress in the state that they're in. To me, that makes sense, but the progressive that the left are kind of pushing is like social aspect of progressive, but it's like, how does that progress the country? That's not going to progress the country in a sense of as a nation as a whole, if you get what I'm saying. It's not going to progress the nation as a whole. That's just going to progress the social aspect of it, but that's not going to allow us to provide protection against outside defenders. That's not going to provide us to allow us to continue to be a great nation in forms of people actually wanting to still come to America. As much as you say America is trash, people are still wanting to come to America. It's just these things that they're not necessarily progressive in my mind. The other thing that they like to talk to do is, I guess, like terminology, gender affirming, sex reassignment, which is still crazy to me. And they just don't talk about things that, the right kind of pushes. It seems to be very biased. Now, granted, these are kids, so there's certain things that we should be talking about, things that we shouldn't be talking about. And that's the weird thing. So again, with the whole LGBTQ thing, I'm starting to see that a lot in these PBS shows. We're, again, with the critical race theory, woke terminology, all that stuff, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which honestly isn't the most terrible thing. It's okay to be, have culture and stuff like that. But they put that on a pedestal to where it's like you got people that are like from Howard that know the whole history of the black community and still act like what happened back then is happening now. And it's not. It's not. And it's crazy. But this is the type of biased stuff, the stuff that the right are not for. They're not for it. But the thing is, when it comes to these network broadcastings, again, this is the part that I'm saying when it comes to like the ideas of what's being pushed out to the children. I just did a video not too long ago about kids in schools and the information that they're being given. Like I talked in the past about schools and the way that they're teaching and how everything is kind of biased and again progressive. These TV broadcasting shows are low key doing the same thing. How are you going to talk about LGBTQ but then not talk about religion? I don't see how that works. Now, granted, there's a bunch of religions that you could talk to, but apparently there's a whole alphabet that we got to go through. But we're not talking about these things. It's giving off one-sided vibes. We're not talking about the idea of, self-development. We're not talking about the ideas of, improving the self so that you can help improve the community. We're not talking about, just things that are factual nowadays. And that's not going to progress the USA. And I feel like that's another portion of it, which is why they're cutting the bill. It's not helping the US at all. But again, it's not all of it. It's not all the shows. But all they need is just some. All they need is just some. And that some is enough. And as much as people think, yo, how are you going to take out a minority that's going to affect the majority? The thing is, it's a crazy mindset. But a lot of people don't realize that you leave this much, eventually is going to be this much. You leave this much and say, oh, it's nothing. Eventually it's going to be this much. As much as you want to deny that, it happens every single time. And even me, somebody that's, heavy in Christianity, if you leave sin this much room, eventually sin is going to get to this much. It's the same concept with just about everything. You see a crack on a piece of machinery that you use and is this much, eventually is going to get to this much. So nip it in the bud early. It's unfortunate because, again, I watched these shows a lot when I was younger. But, hey, man, it's where we're at. Now, the question is, what are they going to do with the funding? They said they're going to use it for military stuff. They said they're going to use it for security. These are all stuff that Trump said that they were going to use the fundings for, just to expand on security and protecting our borders and stuff like that. A lot of people feel like it's going to go into corporate businesses to help build up the corporate and the mass 100%. But honestly, one can say that about the Republicans, but I feel like with the Democrats, they do the same thing, just in a different way. Let's just be real. They do the same thing, just in a different way. Now, the last thing that I want to mention that I think is really holding into this Republican values is that they can, of course, this is going to take out a lot of the funding of some of these stations, a lot of these stations. I think that certain shows, certain stations, from what I hear, even though it's going to be like 12 to 25%, they have mentioned that they're still going to be all right. Some of them may not, but a lot of them are going to be all right. They're going to make some adjustments, but this just means that they're going to require some more. They're going to have to do more advertising, some more marketing to get some funding from the public, from more corporate, other businesses and whatnot. They're going to require funding from them. They're going to have to really have to put their foot forward in order to provide something that will entice the public to put funding towards them. Things like Sesame Street, they have like all these other network streaming shows that I'm pretty sure that they're going to do just fine for. But the other ones, they're actually going to have to do more work. And I think that also forces them to have to switch up the information that they're giving, because if it's not something that's going to be really beneficial to a lot of people, beneficial to their kids, they're not going to want to provide funding to it. And I think Republicans feel like the free market can provide media. And if the public broadcasters are really valuable, then they'll survive without government help. I don't know how true that is, but that's an idea that I'm starting to see. A lot of people may say otherwise. But again, this is one of those things where the Republican Party, the Trump, let me not even say that the Republican Party, because I feel like a lot of like I said, there's 56 people that's still watching. I think it's like over 60% of people that are like, I don't know how I feel about this. And a lot of them are, of course, going to be Republican as well. They're not going to be too fond about this decision. But if they're really going to dish out information, if they're really going to be educational, I think we need to go back to educating what's true and what's facts and scale back. If we're here to just, tickle the ear of those in the progressive mindset and the progressive movement and do things one-sided that I've been seeing a lot in these shows, then you're only going to get funding from those people. And if they're not giving enough, then it is what it is. Now, does that mean to sit here and just do everything on the complete opposite side? No, do what worked before. Teach the truth. Educate the truth. The unbiased truth. But y'all let me know in the comment section what y'all think about this whole situation. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.